group live stream webinar. I am very excited. We're trying a new platform thanks to the incredible instruction of a woman named Sri, who I have posted about amazing things. But I'm really excited about this group that I have with me. Erin West, ADA from Santa Clara County, Stephen Sargent from Airdropped, Jessica Corella. I'm going to let them all introduce themselves briefly, and then we're just going to dive right into this topic that all of us are super passionate about, which is how do we help you, if you're interested, which if you're here, I'm hoping you are, how do we help you maximize your social media impact, specifically through strategic strategies for LinkedIn? So everybody just introduce yourself. Jess, let's start with you since we'll go clockwise on my screen. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry. Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica Corella. I'm a social media strategist with over 10 years of experience doing social media for Fortune 500 companies and startups. I worked for brands like Oracle, Chainalysis, Xerox, helping employees become social media pros in the industry. So I've really seen social media evolve from the beginning. I'm super excited to talk about LinkedIn, which is really by far my favorite platform.
Awesome. All right, Stephen, you're next clockwise for me.
I've been posting on, my name's Stephen Sargent. I'm the founder of Airdrop. So I created my own content agency after posting on LinkedIn for 7 years. Crypto compliance experience, being a blockchain investigator for companies like Bitfinex, and traditional AML experience with HSBC. So I've been on LinkedIn 2 hours a day for every day for the last 7 years. So I think I have some pretty interesting insights. I'm just excited to be sharing the stage with all of you.
That's a level of dedication I think all of us aspire to and admire. Erin.
I'm Erin West. I'm a deputy district attorney in Santa Clara County, California, and I am no professional at social media, but I will tell you I have been an avid user of Facebook for years and have figured out how to keep people interested in what I have to say there. And I've transferred it over to LinkedIn in the past 2 years. And my kids tell me I am a niche internet micro celebrity. So I think I'm going to get some shirts that say that so that we can really recognize what I've done here.
I believe that is what's called a compliment sandwich, as only children can give their mom. An insult somehow lightly wrapped in a compliment. I'm super excited. I'm Amanda Wick. For those of you that don't know me, former prosecutor, used to work at Chainalysis. Got really passionate about advocating for greater inclusion of women in crypto, blockchain, and Web3. Founded an association for women in cryptocurrency that's for women and male allies who also want to advocate for greater inclusion. So we'll talk more about that later, but for now, I want to jump into an amazing presentation that Jess is going to lead with just straight up hardcore strategies. So just take it away. Give me 1 second. I'm still learning how to do this, if I get this right. Okay, I'm going to take the rest of us off and just take it away.
Thank you. I think we have to move back a couple of slides. Cool. So like I said, we'll be talking about LinkedIn, my favorite platform. So we can skip to the next slide. So today you'll learn 3 things to help you become successful on LinkedIn. First, we'll cover the power of LinkedIn and what makes this platform so important for your business, personal brand, and networking in general. Second, we'll cover how you can make a good first impression with your profile by optimizing it for visitors. And last, we'll talk about building your personal brand, how you achieve that by sharing content, but how you can also maximize the impact of the content that you are sharing. Next slide. So the power of LinkedIn is huge. LinkedIn is not just for people looking for jobs. It's also for folks that have a business or they're starting one. There's over 900 million members on the platform from all over the world. And there's 61 million companies on the platform. And if you're looking for a job, it is a great platform as well. Of course, as you know, 72% of recruiters use LinkedIn to hire talent. And if you are looking to promote your business, LinkedIn offers really 2 times more conversion rates compared to other channels, which is really great to see. Next slide. So now let's look at how you can optimize your profile. Before you do anything, you want to make sure that your profile looks good because that's essentially the first impression people have of you in the world of LinkedIn. Let's take a look at one of our panelists' profile, Steven Sargent, who has a well-optimized page. So first, you want to make sure that you have a professional headshot. Next, use the LinkedIn banner to showcase your expertise or highlight your personality. In this case, Steven is highlighting his business. You can also include a landscape. I'm a big fan of landscapes if you can't tell. Or if you speak regularly in public, upload a photo of yourself speaking in public on a panel or whatever. And then this really showcases your thought leadership. Next, you'll want to make sure that your URL is personalized. This is often overlooked. Personalizing your URL helps promote your public profile, and it really allows people to easily find you in search results. Next, you want to make sure that your headline is optimized and updated. You can do something similar to Steven's headline here, where he's really sharing what he does and who he's serving. And then you can also state your title if you want to keep it more simple. Last, but most importantly, you want to make sure that you're filling out your summary. This is a space for your elevator pitch. Use this as an opportunity to really distinguish yourself and use keywords, which is, again, also helpful in search. Next slide, please. So when it comes to sharing content and engaging, it's really important for people to see who you are from your brand and showcase your expertise. So this is an opportunity for you to connect with others, build up your network, connect with new professionals, and really stay up to date with the latest trends and news. Next slide. So when it comes to sharing content, I get a lot of questions on what is too much. I also see folks that get a little too excited and make it a habit of posting nonstop and liking every single thing your connections share, which is great. And enthusiasm is great, obviously, but sometimes less is more, especially on platforms like LinkedIn. LinkedIn doesn't look too kindly on multiple postings, and they'll end up marking your post as spam and make it harder for your post to get visibility, which is so important to start using the scheduling tool, which, as you can see here, is super easy to use. This year, LinkedIn just updated this so that folks can go in and schedule content. You can take 10 to 20 minutes a week and schedule your content for a whole month if you'd like to. Next slide. So when it comes to your content, we talked about balance is key, not going overboard. You also want to think about the type of content that you're sharing. So for example, if your goal of posting on LinkedIn is to drive users to your company page or to learn about a business or to hire you, you want to lead with educational, entertaining, engaging content first before you make those hard asks for people to download a guide or visit your website or hire you. So a good guide to follow is the 4-1-1 rule, which basically states for every 6 pieces of content you share, 4 should be informative, entertaining, engaging, and 1 can be a soft sell. So like if you own a business, maybe you can promote that webinar you're having. And then a hard sell would be learn more about my product. So the idea behind this rule is just to make sure that you're not sharing too much overtly salesy, pushy content, and you're providing really greater value to your audiences. Next slide. Now, when you start sharing content, it's important not to just copy a URL to an interesting article and paste it into the update box. Make sure that you're adding your 2 cents about the article. People really want to know why you're sharing your content, and they want to know a little bit more behind the scenes of what you're thinking about it. And we found that 65% of customized content has better engagement performance than non-customized content. So basically, adding your 2 cents to content will help drive up those engagements and people will want to see more of your content. If you feel shy or you're unsure of how to customize that content, I'm going to be sharing a few tips and tricks on how you can get started. Next slide. So here's an example of an article that I read that I really liked. So you can pull a quote or a stat and then build from it. If you're unsure, think of something that you think your audience would be interested in learning more about and use that as a talking point. Next slide. You can also spark a conversation by raising a question. So whether that's a question within the article or maybe after you read the article, you can think of a question that your audience might be interested in, having a dialogue about. Feel free to add that to your text. Next slide. And then my last tip for customizing content is really to be authentic when sharing your content. My favorite example is from one of our panelists, Erin West. I love following Erin. Erin is so thoughtful with her content. She shares her mission behind her posts in this example and how she's educating the next generation of leaders to really help combat pig butchering, or also known as romance scams. So when sharing content, again, it's essential to provide context from your own experience or background. That way your followers and friends can really understand why you're sharing it and what it means to you. Sharing personal anecdotes or insights can really help add meaning to the content that you're sharing. And next slide. So to really wrap it all up, make sure you're just, you're being yourself on LinkedIn. Remember why you're posting and showcasing your industry knowledge with your connections. To help get you started, I put together a brief LinkedIn Pro checklist. So first and foremost, update your profile to make sure you have it really prepared for your audience. Follow established industry thought leaders like Erin, Stephen, and Amanda. Use LinkedIn scheduling feature to really plan out your content for the month, or maybe you can start with just scheduling out a post for this week. And then lastly, engage with your connections by liking, commenting on their posts to maintain that visibility and build relationships. Thank you so much, Amanda, for having me on this webinar and giving the group an overview of LinkedIn best practices.
That was awesome. Super. I love the scheduling thing because we use Buffer for a lot of stuff, but we also, like my personal page, like I need to be better about scheduling. So even that tip, I was like, oh, note to self, like I really should do that. That is, so I'm excited that we already have like things that even people who are on LinkedIn probably way too much can use. So that's very cool. So we have some questions. The four of us are going to chat. Also want to say thank you so much for all of the excitement and the folks in the comments. I'm trying to channel my inner Steven Sargent, who I consider the king of lives, and like trying to like throw you guys in here, but really, really love the question. So we have our own questions, but we obviously want to hear from you guys, get addressed like the ones that you're dying to know, because these three folks, I learn from them every day. Erin says she isn't a master, but Erin is the queen of authenticity. And whenever I'm unsure about a post, I literally ask myself, WWEW, what would Erin West do? And then I just end up editing a little bit and then I post. So I'll tell you, we're already getting questions rolling in, and I know we had some, but I'll tell you, if you guys don't mind, I'd love to jump into the questions that we're getting, and then we can tackle some of the ones that we think are like pretty critical. So I like this one that came in. What are your thoughts on duplicative content? Like posting a news item that another person in the same professional community has already added. My thoughts are that you need to be on top of what has been published already. This is an interesting one, especially for those of us that are in crypto, because I know a lot of us are in crypto, but some people aren't necessarily in crypto, but I think it's really a question that anyone could jump into. Stephen, I'm curious, like your thoughts, because you sometimes post this. You want to take first crack at this, or what do you do with duplicative content?
Sure. I think it's important. I think one of the questions that we're going to get into is, how do you start if you've never done content on LinkedIn? And I think this is actually the best place to start. Is you read the article, you like it, you have your own thoughts about it, and now you can share that article and add in those own thoughts. Maybe read a couple more articles to get a little bit more context and be a little bit broader. A lot of people just like to take a clip or a quote and put it directly into their LinkedIn post. But I think this gives good people practice. But you also have to remember is that you're not a news outlet, right? Just resharing articles is not going to do anything. Like customizing it to Jess's point, maybe adding in a funny emoji or a funny meme, taking someone else's content, I do it all the time, and adding in your own experience with it, I think is a great way to start and maintain your LinkedIn, especially when you come to like, oh, I don't know what to talk about today, but the SPF trial or the FTX trial is going on. I do have an interesting something to say, and then adding in your comment, I think is super an easy way to stay relative and stay committed to the platform.
I will say I'll add a spicy note to that, which is that at least for me, and especially given the last year of my life, I sometimes get frustrated by clickbait articles where like the title and even like the first several paragraphs really are either just flat out wrong, like kind of misleading. And so I sometimes love to share articles and then just straight up put, this is not what it seems, or point out something where they've buried like the objective part at the bottom, especially with crypto, where the press loves clickbait, but isn't really so objective about truth. And so a bunch of the times I'll be like, all right, well, this is just like insane. And so if you feel strongly and you see a clickbait article, I actually consider it a public service to throw that up there, because somebody reads like the 5-second headline and then doesn't know, right? Like, hey, if you actually read the article, buried there at the bottom is the objective truth piece that wasn't going to get a click, but is actually probably the newsworthy piece to look at. I don't know, just Erin, you guys have anything on duplicative content or thoughts?
Well, I think that people look to people on LinkedIn in terms of, well, what does Amanda think about that? I think that's what I've always really, quite genuinely liked about your content, is that you've thought it through, and you've thought it through in a way that maybe I hadn't thought through before. And so even if it's the same article I've seen before, it's with the Amanda Wick take on it, which is something I look forward to hearing. So I think that even if you're doing something duplicative, you're adding your spin to it, which is, I think, why people follow people like you.
Oh, I love that. And it's also kind of reassuring sometimes to hear from people, because I think all of us would agree. And I know Steven has done some amazing lives on this. And if you're not following his account, I strongly encourage it. I sometimes read some of his posts just for kind of like inspiration moments. But I know you talk a lot and just covered this in the authenticity slide. But with authenticity, it's terrifying. Like you're putting a piece of yourself like online, and you're opening yourself up to criticism and haters. And, Erin, to your point, I literally read my posts. I've sent my posts to friends to gut check me before I post them, because you are really sharing a piece of yourself like publicly. And you kind of, there's a fear in that, right? And Jess, I'm kind of curious, like, because I know we all talk about authenticity. Do you have tips for how to kind of get over that fear? Because I know sometimes we talk about like, how do you just get that first post up? How do you get over the fear to kind of put yourself out there? I know Steven can probably do an entire live on this, but I'm curious, like, I think you guys all have gotten over this, and I'm curious how.
Yeah, I mean, I think, at least from my perspective, I have been working in communications teams for pretty much my whole career. So go to your communications team. If you're at a company, like, feel free to reach out to them, see, hey, would this be okay? Is this, within guidelines? Is this far off? And they're happy to help you, because at the end of the day, we want to see you succeed, right? So I would lean on folks like the comms people, or if you have comms friends in your group, reach out to them. Say, hey, is this cool? And they're happy to help too.
I will tell you, Maddie Kennedy, who was the comms person at Chainalysis, when I came from the government and we couldn't post anything, that woman was my human safety blanket. And there came a point where she was like, Amanda, you're good. Like, you're legal. Like, why are you running this by me? And I'm like, because this isn't a legal issue. This is a comms, like, it's so much more than that. It's, to your point, it's like all these things, is the tone, is the, do I represent the company, right? Like, having that person who knows. And you really don't appreciate comms people until you realize how much goes into this. But she legit, I can't even remember how many posts she reviewed before she was like, you're good, do this, I have real things to do. Bless her. But like, she was my safety net for a while. So I 100%, I think if you have a comms team, definitely use them. Steven, you've talked a lot about getting over the fear. can you encapsulate all of the lives you've done on this? Like, what's your like, knock them in the face, just get out there and post?
You know what? I was just on Instagram and I just saw this quote by Deion Sanders, a world-class football player. He's now a coach. And he says, "Do not let my confidence offend your insecurities." And I think that is really what happens out there. We really don't care a lot what people say, but when people say things that make us like that, expose those insecurities. So you have to know, once you're putting yourselves out there, people are going to come with a lot of things to say. They're going to be opinions. If you go on Instagram, you just open your explore page, go to any popular post and go into the comment section, and your mind will be blown by every single different perspective. So I think most people have to just get over the fear that people are talking about you anyway, right? People are looking at Amanda, and I know the first thing they're going to say, must be nice, travels the world, gets to throw all these parties and conferences. They look at Aaron West and they're going to say, yeah, Aaron, we shouldn't call it pig butchering because, wildlife protect. And, what about traditional scams? And they're going to look at Jess and say, easy for you to say you've worked in. Everyone's going to have a comment about everything. So I think what you have to realize is when you post, you're posting for you and that one person that you know is going to get value from what you're saying, and just focus on that one person, because one is greater than zero. Even if you only get one view, one like, and one person reaching out and saying thank you, that is way better than you not posting at all. That's all I have to say.
I love that. Aaron, I'm curious because I know like there's a lot of current and former Gov people. I know for me, it was really nerve wracking. It was obviously easier when I left Gov and a lot of the restrictions are off. But as somebody who's still in Gov, and I noticed like in the comments, we've got some folks who are either like current FBI, former FBI, like other agencies. It's a really hard line to walk if you're still currently working for the government. How do you navigate that?
It is. It's a really tricky place to be because I came from Facebook, which was all about me and my family and what I was interested in. And then I saw the power of being out there. And I thought, I have agendas that I want to put forward, and LinkedIn is the place to do it. And I'm passionate about pig butchering and I want to get that message out there. But that can be in conflict with what we've been trained to do as government employees. As government employees, we're not usually given the authority or the ability to be publicly speaking our mind all the time. So you've got to make sure that you have the backing of your people before you start doing this. And I've been fortunate in that my content has been originally, it was vetted when I first started doing it, and now they allow me to. They're confident in what I'm doing and the agenda that I have. They see that my agenda is pure and my agenda is about spreading this message about dangerous crimes. And so, quite frankly, I wish more people in government had the ability to do this, because I see that I am one of the few that's allowed to talk about this, but we're the ones with the inside knowledge about what's going on with Bitcoin ATM scams. We know what's going on with people calling and pretending to be your grandmother. We have all the, calling and pretending to be the grandson. We have all this inside knowledge that we don't have a good way of sharing except on a platform like this. And so I wish there was more opportunity to do it. You just have to be smart about how you're doing it and think about why you're doing it, and that it's for a greater purpose. It's not for a personal purpose.
Yeah, I mean, I will say I'll play devil's advocate to that last part, just because there used to be a joke in DOJ that you knew somebody was about to leave the department when they created a LinkedIn page. And I remember there was a woman who'd been with the department for like 25 years. She created a LinkedIn page and people were like, is so-and-so leaving? Like, she just got a LinkedIn page. And it just turned out, like, I think her grandkids or something said, like, get a LinkedIn page, and she worked for another 5 years and then retired. But it was just really fascinating to me, because there is this perception that if you're going to leave government and move to the private sector, right, like that's the time to create a LinkedIn page. But I tell people all the time, you should have started it yesterday. Like, if you're even remotely considering leaving government, you should start at least a year in advance. And especially if you're an attorney thinking about going into the private sector, or if you're an agent or investigator who's going to go work for a blockchain analytics company, or if you're going to go into some sales role where sales is going to be important on some level. And Stephen said this, LinkedIn is marketing. Like, it's marketing yourself, if that's the brand, if it's marketing your foundation, like, Stephen's podcast production services, it's all marketing on some level. So if you just start applying for a job and saying, I'm capable of marketing and business development, if you have a year's worth of LinkedIn posts for them to look at, it's a lot easier. And so, Aaron, 100% agree that if people can get around like their policies and can post and add value, it absolutely serves a public service. But if it does happen to be for that very real private interest, you still have to start long before like it's going to have any value to you. And I think there's a really good question that came up earlier that I think even though we're talking about LinkedIn, Natisa asked a really good question. Which platform provides more visibility for creators in the Web3 crypto world, LinkedIn or Twitter? And I know Stephen and I have had conversations about crypto LinkedIn versus crypto Twitter. There is a conversation here that beyond visibility about who do you want to be, like what is your brand? Because these are two very different communities. But I'm curious, like generally, Jess, I mean, I don't know if it's the same or different for Web3 crypto. I'm not on Twitter enough, so I don't speak to it at all. But what do you think in terms of visibility? Linked before we even get to the ethos difference, what do you think in terms of visibility for creators?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. And I love that we're still calling it Twitter. I will always say Twitter and I'll never say X. But yeah, no, I think it's for different audiences because the audience on LinkedIn is a lot more professional, a little bit more polished, whereas on Twitter, it's a little bit more scrappy. And really folks that are kind of on the fringes of the community. So, I mean, it really depends on your brand, just like you said. If you are more of that scrappy side, more looking to get into the fringes of the community, get into Twitter, follow some people, start, commenting and engaging with people. But if not, LinkedIn is a great platform as well.
Yeah. Aaron, I'm curious, like, are you on Twitter at all?
I'm not on Twitter. And it's funny because LinkedIn, just the format makes a lot more sense to me. And so I prefer LinkedIn. Yeah, I'd love to hear what Stephen says about this.
I'm not on Twitter enough, honestly, and I agree with exactly what Jess said about the fringes. Yeah, I'm not on Twitter enough to kind of realize where I think the best platform is always the platform you feel most comfortable with, right? I'm a little bit of a troll too, so like I think I could do well on Twitter. I bring that same sarcasm and attitude to LinkedIn, and it seems to do okay. So I think I could bang on Twitter if I had to.
It's funny because Jess said it really nicely. I've heard people refer to crypto crazies on being on Twitter, right? Which is a little judgy. And I feel like I used to say that. And then I met this amazing woman who goes by Dumpling. And she does a lot of Twitter spaces. I think her handle is like Bullish Dumpling. And she's a member of the association. And she said something that really stuck with me at one of our events where she said, if there's a massive space, then the right people should fight to fill it because it's going to be filled. And she really changed my view of Twitter because if the loudest voices are the ones that are, fringe, scrappy, et cetera, and the professionals aren't on Twitter, then she's right. Like it gets taken up by one type of voice. And so she's actually kind of getting me to rethink. She just did a Twitter space with like some of our members, and she's actually kind of like completely converted me in terms of I kind of want to fight that fight. The militant part of me was like, well, maybe we should just take off, try to, basically take over and take up more space on Twitter. So I think, or X or whatever we're calling it. So I think that's really, really great. I'm going to put this question up just because I love it so much. Stephen Sargent, you have a great radio voice. Was that learned or innate? Any techniques or tips you could share on vocal presentation? I agree.
Yeah, I think talking
question.
as much as I like to hear myself talk. So I talk at every opportunity. And I always give this advice, like AMAs. I used to do, even during the pandemic, I do AMAs. So I just go online. At that time, it was just Zoom webinars. I'd go online and I'd say, hey, whoever has a question, I'm sure Aaron, and that's why I suggest Aaron, Amanda, and Jess do the same thing because There's a ton of questions in your DMs. You don't have time to answer them all. Just tell everyone to meet you Fridays at 9 a.m. and then they can ask the questions there. The reality is that gets rid of a lot of the fluff in your DMs because people don't want to actually take the time to go and ask you questions. It's not that important. So you don't feel bad about not answering the question. Plus, you get more reputations. I think every opportunity you get to speak. That includes on LinkedIn. Download the app, because I don't know if you can do it too well from the desktop. And instead of leaving messages with people, send an audio note. I always leave audio notes to people, even when I'm using WhatsApp, text, audio notes. It's just repetition at that stage.
I know
like
I've said this
audio
before.
note. Yeah.
I know, like there have been days where I have
It's
come
really
back
nice.
to my phone and it's a rough day, and Steven somehow the
Mhm.
universe has he has left me an audio note that's like this little inspirational thing, and I've literally been brought to tears where it's the crappiest day, and he has somehow magically left me exactly what I needed to hear in an audio note. I keep them all, I replay them. They're a gift. They really are. So
They are good.
there's something about hearing it that we should all be doing this. Aaron, I'm going to start sending to you about keep up the fight on Operation Shamrock, because you're just fighting God's fight there. But it is a really, really good note about audio notes. I will say, just going back real quick, because I forgot to say this, about the Twitter question. If you're in the crypto Web3 space and you want to see somebody who really navigates this well, I highly recommend Justin Wales from crypto.com. He's like the head of legal US, and he's one of, I jokingly tell him he is the straddler of all straddlers. He has managed to develop a Twitter following, a LinkedIn following. He somehow navigates this world. So if you're not following him, he's one of my favorites, and he's kind of who I think of who's really kind of bridged, like a crypto lawyer who has managed to bridge both. Another one is Catherine Kirkpatrick Boss. She's another really good one that kind of straddles both sides. I will tell you, the voice thing's hard. I don't know about you guys, but does anyone else here actually hate the sound of their voice and think it sounds like nails on a chalkboard? Aaron's the only one's mine is a dulcet tone that everybody loves. I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't have time to think about that, right? I got other things to think about. I got
crime fighting. Jesus. So what if I sound like shards of glass? No, you don't, by the way. Your voice is lovely and I could listen to it for hours. But to the person who asked the question, I will say, I love Steven's voice, but you saw Steven's hand go up that he doesn't like. Nobody likes the sound of their own voice. And I realized this a little too late in life. Just there are some people who I listen to that I'm like, those are so rare. And mostly it's Gilbert Gottfried, right? And I'm aging myself with that, and he made a career out of it, for God's sakes, right? So just get over it. Your voice is, I'm sure, perfect. So don't worry about it. This is a really great question. I think it was on our list. Angela asked, is it a good strategy to post on LinkedIn about personal life, or should we stick with work, professional related postings? This one I struggle with, so I am curious your take.
I'll talk about it. So I think that that's our charm. I think that's our hidden. That's what makes us different from everyone else that's just talking about the basics. So someone who does this beautifully is Ari Redboard, and he brings in. He's not telling you everything he's doing on a daily basis, and it always relates back to the point he's making. But I think it's really interesting to see where Ari is going, what he's doing. And so I think that bringing a little bit of your personal flair is what makes you likable to people and differentiates you from everybody who's saying the same question. So I mean, this is not Facebook. I'm not showing you the stuff I show you on Facebook, which is a whole different category. But I do try and bring a little bit of myself, and I think that is appealing in some ways.
I will say, I remember Ari and I were getting coffee, and it was funny because I said to him, I was like, I don't know how you do it. I've done it a little bit with stoicism, with jujitsu, with the things in my life that I'm super passionate about. I have personal issues with pictures of kids just because I used to do CSAM cases as a prosecutor, and I just wish that everybody would take their children offline. just take them like, but that's a very, very personal thing. That's like part, and Erin, I know you identify like with this. This is why prosecutors have to go through a lot of psychological counseling, because all of the world is not evil and terrible. But at the same time, I wish everybody would just take their children's photos offline. Aries are freaking adorable, so he's one of the exceptions. But like it is a really, the other person who does this really well that I love is an attorney, a crypto attorney, Laurel Loomis Ramon at Jenner. What I love about her posts is that she posts something personal but ties it into a lesson, right? And actually, when all my stuff got stolen in Madrid, I did a post about this and very much channeled Laurel's ability to take something that she's going through and then turn it into, what did I learn from it? How was this a leadership thing? Like, yes, it was personal. It's usually about her kids and something that she's dealing with as they transition into adulthood and college. But it's about transitioning. It's about living through transition. And so I feel like it's like a really good blend. And I find that that's a really good strategy, is take the personal, but make it relevant professionally. I get kind of, when I see personal posts, I'm always just kind of like, if I wanted to see your daughter graduating, I'd go to your Facebook page. But how is this relevant professionally? And I'm a horrible judgy asshole when it comes to that stuff, where I'm just like, this feels very Facebooky. I tend to be like, make it work relevant, or it should go on Facebook. I don't know. I
say we do what we want. I say I'm the opposite. I agree with you to a point, especially with the kids and OPSEC and all that good stuff. And I'll be really quick, Jess, because I want to hear your insights as well on this. But I say, like, just post whatever you feel to post. I think people think way too much about what they're posting, what's personal. It's funny, we're so concerned about personal stuff on LinkedIn, but we spend hours a day watching other people's lives, all their personal lives on Instagram, to the point we're not even paying attention to our own personal life and our own kids because we're watching other people living their life. So I think what resonates with Amanda is when I hear like mixed martial arts, there's so many people in compliance that have that commentate, so that it draws
we love
like
to
that.
Fight.
Yeah, we love to. And then when I hear Erin West talking about, her telling her sons about not taking certain types of pictures to put out, like, these are real life situations that the more we talk about it, the more connected we are to other people. And I love hearing what people's personal stuff is. It's great that you went to the ACAMS conference. That's great. But like, I like hearing that Erin went for a run. I want to hear personal stuff just as much as I want to hear the business stuff, because I think to your point, the more we hear about the business stuff, it's like, okay, great, you did a course, like, congratulations. I think it's great, but I'd love to hear about where you were before you did that course. What did you learn in the course? Who'd you meet? I want to hear that personal aspect. But I'm a connector, so that's what does it for me.
Yeah, I mean,
Jess, break the tie. Come in and break it up.
Sorry, Stephen, but I'm going to side with Amanda on this one. I think that there's a time and a place for like that type of content on channels like Instagram, on like Facebook, but on LinkedIn, I 100% agree, should add your personal flair, your anecdotes, your personal life, but tie it into what it is your overall strategy is. Are you like talking about your business? How does that connect with your business? Then people will want to follow you and engage with you, and they might mute you, or they might, decide not to follow you if it's not really relevant to what they're interested in.
And actually, that goes to a really great question that we got from Anjali. What is the advice to keep in mind? And it's a broad question, which is kind of why I love it. Advice to keep in mind while creating the content for a post, because it kind of touches on things that we've all talked about, and almost like all of the things that was in your presentation, Jess. But I'm curious, like, what are the things that you guys like what's the trigger? Like, when you go to post, is there something, like, I know for me, I'm kind of like, oh heck, right? And a lot of times, like, I'm like fighting or militant or just like angry about something, right? Or like, oh, somebody posted this and I'm really excited and it's a shout out. I don't know. For me, it tends to be very emotive. And that's probably not the best place to come from a post. But what is it for you guys in terms of like, what are you thinking, or what would you tell somebody to keep in mind when they're creating the content for a post?
So, I mean, I can speak from like my professional life, because you might notice if you follow me on LinkedIn, I'm very quiet. I'm a lurker. But when it comes to, coming up with a piece of content, let's say for a brand, I'm always looking at what is my audience talking about? What do they want? What are they looking for? And then I try to tailor my content based off of that. And you could even do that as a personal, like as a, regular professional posting for yourself. Look to see what your audience is talking about, then tailor that content to them because they want to see that.
I think for me, I very much have a point of view that I want to get across. And so I'm always looking for different creative ways to get that point of view across. So Jess pointed out one of my postings the other day that was about when I had the opportunity to be with students. And it was funny because I was asked to judge a science fair and I was like, all right. And then I got there, and quite honestly, it was one of the most inspirational things I've done in quite some time, because you get there and you see these people who are all fit, all full of fire and ready to take on the world, and they have all the energy and all the positive emotion. And you think, wow, how do we harness this? How do we use this for good? How do we, and you're like, oh, this is exactly my mission. My mission is to encourage and inspire about STEM, about adopting crypto, about using the blockchain for an investigative tool. And so what a great example they are. So I feel like I'm always kind of looking for an example that's different, that, Stephen makes a big point. There's a lot of content of like, here I am at this event. And what I want to hear is like, what did you see at that event that was inspirational to you? Who did you meet at that event that was inspirational? What new nugget did you take from that event that will matter to us because we didn't get to go to that event? So I think that's the kind of inspiration I get for my content.
I love that. I think one thing I would just add is I like to highlight content that maybe others would be too scared to share. So whether it's recruitment advice, recruiters don't want to piss off a ton of their clients. I have a couple recruiting clients. I'm not too worried. So I'm going to share that advice. Things that piss off employees, I'm going to share that advice because I don't necessarily have an employer that I'm ultimately scared of. And I also want to highlight things that other people are doing. In one of our sessions, Amanda, you were doing some work with newcomers to an institution or from other countries. And like, you're probably not going to feel comfortable sharing that online, and you can delete it from here if that was too much. But I would like to share that on your behalf because I know you don't feel like, oh, I want to I forgot what they call it on LinkedIn. They call it self-promotion or whatever. Humble bragging is what they call it. But I love bragging about other people and what they told me. Alona Katz made a reference to some things that she's looking for in an employee. And I'm like, oh, that's information I think a lot of people would know. She's not going to post it out there while she's looking for employees. So it's a great opportunity for me to post it on her behalf and get the engagement that I think it deserves.
Can I speak to that for a second? Because Stephen
Yes.
crushes at that.
Yes.
I think that we all have different identities that we provide. And what Stephen does, and I don't know how many people I've met because of Stephen, that when he tells me to listen to someone, I'm like, oh, yeah, that's someone that's worth my time. That's someone I need to listen to. And what he also is, which is, he's a couple of things. He's the promoter that we all need, and then he's the cheerleader we all need. But he's also he'll call things out that aren't right or that are controversial, and there aren't a lot of people out there doing it. And so I welcome it, because if we're all just posting that we're at ACAMS, it's a pretty boring, not very interesting feed to scroll through. So kudos to Sargent for adding some spice.
And I will say this, I think the thing that, and I did a post on this because, people don't know a lot of people don't know what the word mensch means. It's Yiddish. And I'm like Jew-ish, like I eat a little too much bacon wrapped cheeseburgers, but like my understanding of the word is like a truly good person who really cares about others and does good things for others. And the funny thing about Stephen is that this is just who he is, but he's really trying to make the world a better place by trying to have other people be their best versions of themselves. And what's hilarious is I watch how many times he does an AMA or he does post and he gives all this amazing advice, like, don't be out for yourself, like try to help others, like all this stuff. And then somebody inevitably in the comments is like, so can I get 15 minutes of your time and you can tell me how to get a job? Like, they literally have ignored everything he said. And you know what? He does, like, maybe he goes and like throws a cheap glass against the wall. I don't know. I like to think that you have like all this like cheap plates that you just break or something. But like your infinite patience for it, and you just come back the next Friday at an AMA and you're like, I'm just going to tell you again, be a better person, like put yourself out. And I think and I get down and I will say, like, I love how you really like, you really shout people out. You really go out of your way, especially for women. To Aaron's point, or I think Stephen, you said it, there's a difference between self-promotion and self-aggrandizement. Like there's a difference between talking about something that you validly did. Like to Aaron's point, I went to this conference, I learned this cool thing, I spoke on this topic, I learned, like, there's a difference between self-promotion and humble bragging and self-aggrandizement that feels like, and I think, Jess, it goes to your point of authenticity. Like you guys are the ones that, if I read something that you're putting positive, and Aaron, you do this with Shamrock all the time, but like when I read something, if Aaron's talking about Operation Shamrock, like I know it's for some other purpose. Like, yes, it's about how amazing she is, but for her, that's a byproduct. Like, she's not doing it because she's amazing. She's doing it because she wants to end pig butchering. She wants to help victims. Like, she wants to help others, enable others, build others. And in that process, it is perfectly reasonable for her to say, I do all these amazing things in order to effectuate that. And then when the rest of us get frustrated because she only tells about this much of the amazing stuff she does, that's when the Stevens and I of the world come in and be like, no, you have no idea. She told you this much, but she does this much. And so I think if you can be that person that provides the this on top of the people who do this, for me, it's good karma. It's just good. It's just better for everyone. And if it's a woman, I promise you, I'm sending out like something into the universe as a thanks, because women are notoriously bad at this, at self-promoting themselves, at acknowledging, at not humble bragging, at just even bragging about the things that they deserve to brag about. So if you're out there and you're a person who does this for women, male, female, non-binary, I don't care. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So I threw in the links and I'll put it in the comments, but I really hope that you'll like, share, subscribe. Like we really appreciate it. And please like follow Aaron, Stephen. I can't even like throw all their pages in there, and it's just gonna get like insane. So we've got like a couple minutes left. I think some more really good questions came in. Let me just see what's the last one. Oh, okay. So actually, it's literally kind of like in line with what we were just talking about. What are your thoughts on the continual self-congratulatory postings? Like every minor certificate or course completed, is this counterproductive? Personally, it turns me off LinkedIn, but that could be because the British tend to be more self-deprecating. We didn't even really talk about the cultural differences, which we could do an entire thing on. I will tell you, having traveled globally, the cultural differences are very real. But that is a really good question. How do you guys balance, like, how do you guys balance the self-congratulatory things? I'll be honest, I follow all three of you. I don't see them a lot. I mean, I don't, maybe you guys already have all the certifications. I'm not sure. But like, Stephen, I know you've talked about this because a lot of folks ask you about how to get into blockchain crypto investigations and compliance, and their certifications are very real. And it's both, I mean, where do you draw the line? Do you put out every single certificate you get, or where are you at on that?
I think for me, I think it's important to add the extra. Even if you're going to put out a certificate, there must be elements. I think a lot of people think of certificates differently. They think about it to put on their resume. I'm using the certificate to connect with either the instructors, the company that's offering the certificate, and people that actually already have the certificate. So that's my framework of thinking is a little bit different than everybody else's. So when I post about a certificate, I usually try to get free certificates for people. So if I'm going to take your certificate, even if I don't pay for it, I also would like 3 other certificates so I could give away to people. And that's how I would post about the certificate. I took this, or I contributed to this. I have three certificates for other people that would love to also take the course. And then I highlight either the speakers, the organizers, and the people involved with the certificate. I think people look at the certificates too one-dimensional, and that's why they only post self-congratulatory, because that's all they were thinking about is achieving the certificate. But similar to like putting out content on LinkedIn, and to Aaron's point, it's a byproduct of everything else. You should be taking these certificates to try and connect with other people. I think you'll see a lot more opportunities and jobs that way versus just saying that you took the certificate. But that's just my thought.
No, I love that. Aaron, Jess, anything you guys want to add? Like, I will say, I was trying to think of like the the last self-congratulatory thing. I remember debating, like, I thought about putting up a post when I got my green belt in Krav, because for me that was huge. It's what allowed me to go into advanced, and like for me it was a huge moment. And I had this fantastic picture that was, I looked horrible. I was sweaty. Our test was like 5 hours. It was grueling. I looked like I had been dragged and kicked and beaten, which I was. And I don't know, it just, there was something about it that felt like it was a big deal to me, but posting about it just, I don't know, there was something where I feel this thing in my gut. Do you guys feel that thing in your gut where like you think about something and then you're like, ugh. I think for me, I call it my judgment, or like my spidey sense. And I feel like really spidey sense, judgment, that's like the most valuable skill you can develop. And so I feel like LinkedIn, like posts are like a place to tune that, where it's like you can almost feel, if you just sit in a moment, picture it, picture people reading it, picture like, is this me? Like, is this really who I am? Like, the people who know me, they knew about the test. Like, but I don't know. There was just something about it that I was like, it was very private. And I'm telling the three of you because I love you and I'm forgetting about the people who are watching this. And I also, it could be 5 people watching this who now know I'm a green belt. But like, I don't know. There's just
I got to disagree with you on this one. No, I got to disagree with you, because number one, you didn't happen to win a lottery. You won something that you worked so hard for, and it was physically demanding, it was mentally demanding, it was challenging, it was something that took planning, effort, execution. To me, that tells me a lot about you. And I think I first personally would have loved to have seen it. And secondly, I think that there's a lot of stories you could tell about that people would have loved. And to me, it just shows me in one more area of your life, you're a badass. And to me, that's valuable. And I know people don't like to self-promote, and it's weird and it's awkward and all that, but like, that's why I look up to you, is because I know you can do hard things. And when you continue to show me you can do hard things, I'm all in.
I will say I do feel like a giant hypocrite every time I say that women need to be better at self-promotion. Because Stephen and Aaron follow behind me and be like, then post this, then post it. Like put up or shut up. Like, quit telling other people that they suck at self-promotion unless you're gonna actually do these things. And we all need to be better at it. I know, like, there are these gaps, and I'm really lucky to have people like you guys who come behind me and are like, you should do this, you should do this, you should do this. And I guess I just need to work on it as hard as I tell people we should all be working on it, especially women. We should all be working on it. It does not matter how, we just need to be better at it. And I appreciate like the kick in the pants a little bit to be better at it, because, and hopefully if you're watching this, maybe this serves as the kick in the pants to you to get out there, just start posting. And I will tell you, like, if you're hesitant, shoot me a message. Like, I have my group of people that review my posts. I'm sure we all have our like gut check people. But if, like, I told a friend, like, hey, let's work together on your first post. We can draft it. We can talk about it. We can workshop it, whatever you need. But like, all of us are here to help. Like, there's an amazing crypto blockchain community. So we are really here if you need us. And I know we're coming up. I wanted to end. I think we said this would be like 45 minutes. I can't remember. So we'll just do last pieces of advice, you guys. Like, if you had one thing, what would you tell everyone out there? You're kind of like, in terms of LinkedIn, this is your last piece of advice.
So I didn't know anything really about LinkedIn. I thought of it as a place that you go if you are looking for a job. And so in January of 2022, I thought, you know what, I'm going to post once a week and see what happens. And I had no followers, I had no friends, and just posting once a week, you can see the power of it. And then the more you post and the more you not just post, but really interact with people that are interacting with you. Steven's the king of that. I think that it's a valuable community. And so I know it's challenging but we can all do hard things, and just start with that first post.
That's awesome. Jess.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I think just don't be afraid and just get out there and, follow these folks, see what they're doing, and you'll be there just like them soon.
All right,
I think
Stephen.
the last thing I'll add is think of it as like a piggy bank. It's a value bank account, right? Whatever you're gonna get out of LinkedIn, you must have already first put into it. I think people get confused. There's a couple questions about I'm not getting enough views. I'm not getting well. What have you contributed other than your posts, right? Have you gone in? Have you shared expertise on other people's posts? Have you gone into your messages and introduced yourself to every new connection? I think everyone that's getting value out of LinkedIn has already put so much into it. People see the results and they're like, I want to get those results. I want to reach those amount of followers. And it might be shorter, it might be longer. The gestation period varies. But I think everything you're going to pull out of LinkedIn is what you put into it. And last thought is stop looking for jobs on LinkedIn. Start looking for opportunities, and you'll have more jobs than you know what to do with.
So those are all amazing. And I will just say the two that you guys made me think of, and I'm sorry, I have to bring it back to stoicism, but the dichotomy of control is to only care about the things that you have control over. There is so much that you don't have control over in social media, how people react, what people think, but all of the tips that everyone here has provided is really about what you can control: your content, your subject matter expertise, your courage, frankly, to post, to put yourself out there. And you do have control over that. But it does take courage, which is one of the virtues of stoicism that people tend to ignore. It's never not frightening to put a piece of yourself out into the public sphere. Acknowledge that. And if that's the sticking point, acknowledge we got to work on your courage. And what is that going to take? Because if that's what you can't get over, that's something that's a little bit deeper, that maybe it's a longer discussion. Where is that coming from? You kind of have to have a little bit of self-awareness, a lot of self-awareness about like, what are the reasons that I'm having difficulties with this? And there are no better people to have that conversation with. So Jess, Stephen, Aaron, thank you so much for having this conversation. Thank you to everybody who was watching, your fantastic comments, your support. I will just say these are three of like the most brilliant people. So please follow them on LinkedIn. If you enjoyed this, please like, share, subscribe, repost it, trying to get the word out so that people can get value from it. That is a huge show of support. If you have ideas for future webinars, educational content, we are here for it. I will just say, this is the association's page on LinkedIn. We do a lot of events like this, so please follow us. It's too long. I'll throw it in the comments so everybody has it. And then for more information, check out womenincrypto.org. But I just want to say thank you guys so much for being here, and we'll definitely do this again. But for now, I'll just say thank you so much for joining us.